has more proof regarding the 2020 election that most people don't even know he had. Not everything has been told to the public. Many pieces for freedom have been held back for the right time, and that time is drawing near.
This is Julie Green, if you're unfamiliar. She is a full-blown QAnoner, and bizarrely, QAnon seems to have become an arm of the Russian propaganda network. I'm going to try to establish that fact for you in this video, okay? So stick with me through it. I have a number of QAnoners to talk about. She is only one of 3 or 4, I think I'm gonna hit. So Julie Green, very obviously repeating Russian disinformation. Who would believe that Putin is some good guy trying to save American democracy, really, by releasing secret information about how the 2020 election was stolen from Trump? Seriously, insane. Listen to the entire clip that she put out. This is late December 2023 when this released. Just check out what she had to say here.
Putin, this name continues to be in your news. I told you my children...
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot to mention. Yeah, this isn't Julie Green speaking. It seems like it's Julie Green speaking. It's really God speaking. Seriously, she claims she's using the voice of God right now to communicate this stuff. And God is telling you, through Julie, that Putin's a good guy who has secret information on the 2020 election. Really. No joke.
Putin, this name continues to be in your news. I told you my children you would be surprised on which side he's on. Shocking information is about to come out of Russia.
It would surprise you whose side Putin is on, she says? Okay. I mean, I'm sorry. I keep saying she says. No. It would surprise me which side Putin is on. God says. Okay, go on.
That will show the world proof of the establishment in D.C., of its deals that were made with Russia. So they thought.
So she's saying that, like, the deals were secret, or so they thought. Look at this. There's a cat behind me. How is that cat even sitting up there right now? I have no idea how there's a cat right there behind me. Cats are immune to physics, man. I'm telling you. No, I think she's sitting on a table back there.
Putin has many things against the Biden and Obama.
Notice she used the term the Biden and Obama. That's because she believes that they're demons. Really.
Much proof of their evil intent and evil plans and strategies made against their own nation and the nations around the world. Deals they made with Russia, or they thought were made, in confidence.
But, of course, Putin, being the good guy that he is, secretly recorded this information, is going to show the American public, because he cares about his American brethren. He really cares about us. Quick interjection, this won't take long. I just want to say, if you want to support my channel, the best way you can do it is by watching this video to the end, or at least watching a little bit longer than you would have otherwise. YouTube's recommendation algorithm works off of watch time. You can also subscribe to the channel, like the video, and check out my Patreon. Link is in the description for that. All right, back to the video.
When it was always a setup.
This woman is ridiculous.
This explosive evidence is about to surface to shake the fake administration and the swamp to their core.
I mean, she's been prophesying, quote unquote, that this secret information is going to release any 5 minutes now. She's been saying this for, oh my God, since I've been following her years now, years and years and years. She's been a QAnoner since nearly the very beginning, and she's been saying it this entire time. Are we ever going to see the fruits that she claims are going to appear?
Putin has more proof regarding the 2020 election that most people don't even know he had. Not everything has been told to the public. Many pieces for freedom have been held back for the right time.
For the right time. For freedom. Many pieces for freedom have been held back for the right time. Right. Putin, the bastion of democracy and capitalism, who loves the earth and all of the people on it and just wants to help the American people. Right. Okay, go on.
And that time is drawing near.
This person is an absurd human being. You know who's even more absurd, though, than Julie Green, if you can believe it? My main man, Robin Bullock. I love the purple on him. On point. Absolutely on point. He's a full-blown QAnoner. If you've never heard of Robin Bullock, oh boy, you are in for a treat. Check out Robin Bullock. I guess he wanted to be a rock star, I'm assuming, and failed miserably, so he decided to default to his Plan B career, which was pastor. So check out Robin Bullock pretending to be a rock star here. Mid-November 2023.
Lord, we bless you and thank you for the protection of Israel. And Lord God, I thank you for the protection of Benjamin Netanyahu.
Why would anybody pray for the protection of Netanyahu? Okay. Basically, nobody that I know likes Netanyahu. I mean, some people like Israel. Some people want Israel to, like, you know, invade Gaza or whatever. I mean, there are people around like that, right? But to like Netanyahu, that's kind of weird. Okay, go on. Everyone I know thinks that Netanyahu's a right-wing extremist.
Of Benjamin Netanyahu.
I mean, maybe that's what old Robin here likes about him, the right-wing extremism.
Thank you, Lord God, for the protection of Donald Trump. I thank you, Lord God, for the protection of Vladimir Putin.
The protection of who? Why do we have so many televangelists, so many QAnoner televangelists coming out of the woodwork praying for Vladimir Putin's protection, praying that Putin will release this secret information that will vindicate Trump and help the American people? What is going on right now?
I thank you, Lord God, for the protection of certain key leaders. Lord God, that the enemy must move out of the way in order to bring his agenda to pass. But no more, no more, no more, no more.
Notice he's saying no more to the beat of the metronome in the background, or to the beat of the drum. He's kind of turning this into a pseudo song, I guess.
No more, no more, no more, no more ships set like they're anchored to the bottom of the sea.
I don't know what that means. You shouldn't have been a pastor or a rock star, honestly. Your plan A and plan B both failed miserably. Anyway, the point here is that Vladimir Putin has very obviously seized the reins of QAnon, right? Both the people I just played for you are QAnoners. Here's another QAnoner. This is Delora O'Brien. She's full-blown, avowed QAnon. I think 2 weeks after Russia invaded Ukraine, in the United States, there wasn't a hint of support for Russia. I'm sure there was support here, but those people weren't saying a single word. Everybody who was saying a word about this supported Ukraine. Everybody. Support for Ukraine was through the roof, honestly. And 2 weeks into the invasion of Ukraine, QAnoner Delora O'Brien comes out of the woodwork to spread Russian propaganda. Now, let me tell you how Putin has run his propaganda campaign. He did the same thing in 2014. To my knowledge, Putin invented a new type of propaganda technique, or he popularized it in 2014. I don't know which. Maybe it was already being used and he just started using it more. I have no idea. But it's called the fire hose of falsehoods, fire hose propaganda. And the idea is it's similar to the Gish Gallop, but not exactly the same. So you have a list of excuses for why you've done what you've done, right? Putin says Ukraine has Nazis in it. They say there are biolabs there that are making chemical weapons. They say that the U.S. is using them as a puppet state. And they just, a big old list of things comes out about reasons why they wanted to invade. Now, they have this list. That would be the Gish Gallop. They just start shooting out thing after thing after thing. The fire hose of falsehoods propaganda technique is where you send them out through every media network that you can get your hands on. So Donald Trump does this nowadays also. You send every possible excuse for your actions through Fox News, the TV network. You send it through their website. You put it on Twitter. You put it on Truth Social. You put it everywhere that you can possibly get it out. And you see which one is most popular. Once you figure out which one is most popular, which one is sticking the best, you zero in on that and you start doing the fire hose of falsehoods by spreading it out to other media outlets You zero in on that specific one with the fire hose of falsehoods. At this moment in time, when Delora O'Brien came out, early March 2022, Russia was working on the fire hose of falsehoods. Nobody believed any of it. They hadn't even offered their top excuses. They were still working on Ukraine is full of Nazis at the time, which is ridiculous. But listen to what Delora O'Brien here had to say. She's a QAnoner, and this was immediately after the war started.
I'm not on Putin's side,
she said, before justifying loving Putin with everything in her.
I'm not on Zelensky's side. I'm not on Trump's side.
She totally is. She's totally on Trump and Putin's side.
I'm on God's side. God's side is the side of truth. It just so happens that right now, our President Trump is on the side of God. Also, believe it or not, so is Putin.
I don't believe it. Okay. Lay it down for me there, Delora.
Right before I came on here.
Remember, 2 weeks after the Ukraine war started.
This is what was sent to me. A Russian soldier. I even have his name, and I can't give it. I'm sorry. I can't.
Probably because she didn't have the Russian soldier's name, the supposed Russian soldier.
Just research it. I'm sure it'll start coming out.
It never came out because it was fabricated.
Searching for bioweapons. There was him and a few of the other soldiers.
That's fascinating to me because this is an example, prime example of Putin pushing the bioweapons fire hose of falsehood claim right now. Part of pushing this fire hose of falsehoods is pushing these ideas through QAnon. And which propaganda, or which piece of propaganda would stick the best with QAnon? Which one do you think it was? It was the bioweapons one, of course, because that's the one that he was pushing so hard, but there's a wrinkle to it. Keep listening to what she says about the bioweapons lab or whatever.
Searching for bioweapons in central Ukraine, stumbled upon a child trafficking den.
Told you. I knew it. See, this is what I'm talking about. Anything that they can do to talk about stolen children, they'll do it. Of course, QAnon doesn't care about abducted children or about, people mistreating children or any of that stuff. They don't care about any of that. This was the method that the QAnon movement used to get famous in the first place. They used the hashtag #SaveTheChildren on Facebook and on Twitter and Instagram and everywhere they possibly could. They used that hashtag to go viral. And it was successful originally in 2017. QAnon used that hashtag to explode. It got tons and tons and tons of attention. So anytime there's anything child related, QAnon wants to talk about it to try to hitch a ride on that subject to the very top once again, as they did originally. So yeah, Putin spread the idea that there was a biolab in central Ukraine. False. I mean, completely misrepresented at absolute best. And claims that there were children inside of a child trafficking den within that biolab. It's tailor-made propaganda for QAnoners.
Trafficking den. Dimly lit, filthy bunker.
I mean, it's just completely made up. I'm sure I don't even have to say that. It's just fabricated. Anyway, she goes on to describe it in vivid detail. It's fake anyways, so I'm not even going to bother. Basically saying they came blinking out into the sunlight. They hadn't seen sunlight in weeks. It's just absurd, dude. Anyway, now you have an idea, hopefully, of the fact that Putin is absolutely using QAnon as a disinformation outlet, right? Part of his fire hose of falsehoods. He's trying to push propaganda out through QAnon. Now listen to his little QAnoner buddy here, Robin Bullock, who's completely fallen for his nonsense. He has some anti-Semitic stuff to say the least. I'll just let you listen. Check this out. Early March 2022. This is around the same time, by the way, that Delora O'Brien came out. Yeah, in fact, yeah, it was the same month, the same time frame.
Let me tell you something.
Tell me, Robin.
George Soros starts saying that Putin is evil and doing all of this, and George Soros is saying it, something is wrong.
Dude, why? This is just strange. Is it just me? Is it weird to anybody else that QAnoners like this keep coming out of the woodwork when the most heat, the most international heat, is on Putin, and they're endorsing him? This is bizarre. You know, there's a woman who accused Biden of sexually assaulting her years ago. I don't believe that it's true at all. Biden has no history of that. There were no other accusers that came out of the woodwork. I mean, you have to evaluate people's credibility based on a number of factors. And this person, Tara Reid, had no credibility. First of all, no one else over Biden's, 50, 60-year history in politics or whatever it is, has ever accused him of something like that. That's shot number one. Number two, zero evidence of it. The only circumstantial evidence is that she worked on his campaign at one point at sometime during like the 80s or 90s or something. I don't even remember. And also, as it turns out, she wrote a love letter to Vladimir Putin. Seriously. Who writes a love letter to Vladimir Putin? Like what? I'm sorry, let me rephrase. It wasn't a love letter. It was posts on social media praising him. That's what it was. President Putin has an alluring combination of strength with gentleness. His sensuous image projects his love for life, the embodiment of grace while facing adversity. Like what? Why is somebody talking about how sexy Putin is? What the hell is happening right now? Just strange, man. I'm telling you, just weird. Anyway, it's obvious that there are Russian operatives working within the political sphere and working within QAnon. If that doesn't convince you, just look at what happened to that woman that was at the top of the NRA in 2016. What was her name? This is on NPR. NRA was foreign asset to Russia ahead of 2016. New Senate report reveals. This was published September 27th, 2019, again on NPR. The National Rifle Association, NRA, acted as a foreign asset for Russia in the period leading up to the 2016 election, according to a new investigation unveiled Friday by Senator Ron Wyden, Democrat from Oregon. Drawing on contemporaneous emails and private interviews, an 18-month probe by the Senate Finance Committee's Democratic staff found that the NRA underwrote political access for Russian national Maria Butina, she was arrested and served time in jail, and Alexander Torshin, more than previously known, even though the two had declared their ties to the Kremlin. Maria Butina, that is who I was thinking of. Maria Butina was near the top of the NRA, basically. And yeah, this is Maria Butina after her arrest for what she did for Russia, basically. This is AP News. A Russian gun rights activist who admitted she was a secret agent for the Kremlin and tried to infiltrate conservative U.S. political groups while Donald Trump rose to power, says she believed her notes and analysis would be valuable for Russian officials. Maria Butina, who admitted covertly gathering intelligence on the National Rifle Association and other groups at the direction of a former Russian lawmaker, spoke to NPR in an interview airing Friday. This was written in 2019 again. So she spent time in jail. Yeah, okay, so she was sentenced to 18 months. She served 18 months. She was 30 years old. Once she served that time and exited jail, she went back to Russia and is now, to my knowledge, she's not a TV personality in Russia, but she is, I think, a politician in Russia and is asked about her opinion on things for the news regularly in Russia. These organizations, this stuff like QAnon, they're arms of the Russian government. I don't know how else it could possibly be clearer. How can I make this clearer? And we've got a televangelist praising Putin talking about how great Putin is and how evil George Soros and the Jews are. Really, does it get clearer?
Let me tell you something. If George Soros starts saying that Putin is evil and doing all of this, and George Soros is saying it.
Sounds like he's saying Georgosaurus, like Georgosaurus Rex. Okay?
Saying it. Something is wrong. Something's terribly wrong. You're talking about Jabba the Hutt, man. You're talking about somebody who runs the biggest crime syndicate and organization in the entire world.
Now, you want to know who George Soros is and what he does. There's a lot of disinformation about Soros. Let me tell you who Soros is and what he does and why he's so hated, if you didn't know. George Soros was 14 years old during the Holocaust. Survived the Holocaust, was taken in by a Nazi family, a member of the Nazi party who worked for the Nazis, who knew that he was Jewish and protected him. They were basically just doing what they could to get through and save Jews. And this story is repeated throughout German history. There are a whole bunch of people within the Nazi party who did what they could to save people, stop trains or pick people out to pull them out so they didn't die, that kind of thing. That happened from time to time. And that was what happened with George Soros. He was picked as somebody who would be saved by one of the people within the party. They tried to save his life, and they succeeded. They took him into their home, knowing that he was Jewish, and they lied on his behalf, told everybody that he wasn't Jewish. And they took him around on their runs. The father of this house did. He took him around on his runs. I don't remember what it was he was doing. Don't quote me on this. I think he was counting stockpiles, goods, gold that they had, rings that they had stolen, that type of thing. And Soros went along with him because, what else is he supposed to do? He was 14 years old in Hungary, I believe, as a Jewish person in a Nazi-controlled region. After World War II, Soros and his adopted parents were investigated by international tribunals and stuff, and he was exonerated of all wrongdoing, even though he was apparently present when somebody was murdered. He wasn't the one pulling the trigger. He had nothing to do with anything. He was 14. What was he supposed to do? He was exonerated. After, World War II ended, he came over to America and worked for a bank. I forget which bank it was, but they put him in charge of a small fund that would be invested. And he took that money and he invested it in certain things that paid off big. They made a lot of money for that bank. The bank then put him in control of an even larger sum of money, like millions of dollars. They said, it's not yours, but you can decide where it goes. So he started shorting international currencies. He was betting on the British pound, for example, to fail. A trader borrows shares from a broker and immediately sells them with the expectation that the share price will fall shortly after that. If the share price does fall on the stock market, the trader can buy the shares back at the lower price, return them to the broker, and keep the difference, minus any loan interests as profit, basically. That's what shorting a stock is. Well, George Soros was shorting currencies. He was betting on them to fail. And he was successful. He won. He was correct. And it was actually hurting these countries, like India's currency. He shorted India's currency, I believe. It was hurting the Indian currency for him to bet on it to fail. And it was outlawed eventually. I think it was made illegal for people to bet on their currencies to fail like that in the future. But in the interim, he made a ton of money off of it. So anyways, he had billions at this point because he made a ton of money off of betting for things to fail like that. And then he started a brand new hedge fund. A hedge fund is a fund of money that's used in risky ways. It will either pay off big or it won't. And Soros and some other people worked with him to start a brand new hedge fund And this hedge fund was started, it was sometime between 2007 and 2013, I think. And it is now like the largest hedge fund that Soros has ever owned. It's made so much money for him. So anyways, the fact that he was shorting currencies, world currencies, was an extremely controversial way of earning money. And people didn't like him for that. But, a bunch of anti-Semitic conspiracy theories started being targeted toward him in full force when in the 2000s he said, I'm no longer supporting various different candidates. Like up to that point, he'd been supporting some Republicans, some Democrats. It was kind of a mix depending on which one he thought would be most beneficial to him. He said, now I'm just supporting people on the left because the right has gone completely off the rails. And that is when the anti-Semitic conspiracies started in full force. It went completely nuts. So what did George Soros do exactly? Who is he? He's a Jewish person. He was a 14-year-old boy who was Jewish in Nazi-controlled areas of Europe, protected by a Nazi family, taken in so he wouldn't be killed. He came to America and he got rich by working for a bank. And then he took his riches and bet against currencies, bet that currencies in the world would fail. And when he was correct, he got richer, took that money and put it into a big hedge fund, a big risky fund where you take big risk and you either lose big or you win big. Well, he won big. And ever since the 2000s, he's been investing in politicians. That is George Soros in a nutshell. He also is openly atheist. He also does not believe in God. He said that in, I think, a 1993 interview. And all those facts put together were enough to turn him into the Antichrist in these people's minds. He is effectively the same as probably most people who, watch my channel. Intellectually, ideologically, he believes the same ideals. He doesn't think that the Republican Party is, lives in reality anymore. He thinks he doesn't really think that there's anything out there that's going to sweep in and solve the problem for everybody. The problem needs to be solved by us right here, right now. And he thinks that the left is less destructive than the right at this moment. I guess all of those things combined were enough to demonize him. So he thinks that Putin is damaging to society, and he's absolutely correct on that point. So with all that in mind, that knowledge about Soros, let's listen to Bullock one more time talk about George Soros.
You're talking about somebody who runs the biggest crime syndicate and organization in the entire world.
He doesn't run a crime syndicate or whatever. He simply runs a hedge fund and uses a lot of that money to donate to political campaigns around the United States. That's it.
Crime syndicate and organization in the entire world. You're talking about people who can take over nations, overthrow kings, replace them with their own. You're talking about somebody who moved into the most powerful free nation on the face of the planet and moved in with their cronies, rolled buses in that came from him.
I have no idea what he's talking about. Like, none of this is true.
Buses in that came from him, set out foot soldiers called Antifa, started...
That's just nonsense. You know what's fascinating about this specific charge against Soros? Okay, I'm not going to give the whole history here, but there's a document called the Protocols of the Elders of Zion, right? The Protocols of the Elders of Zion is a document that repeats every anti-Semitic conspiracy theory in history, practically, from, millennia old. And it was printed in Tsarist Russia in 1902, between 1902 and 1906. In the 1920s, I think 1921 maybe, a journalist discovered the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. They're about this long each. They're just newspaper clippings. There are 27 of them. They were plagiarized straight from an 1854 satire book from France. It didn't even mention Jewish people. 80% of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion was plagiarized from this French satire book from 50 years earlier. So how did they kind of smuggle the protocols in? They claim that the protocols of the Elders of Zion, which is supposed to be the Jewish method of world domination, was found on a dead Jewish soldier. Apparently, in their mind, the Elders of Zion, the Elders of Jews, which aren't even a real group, that doesn't exist, were sending out this list of 27 steps, basically 27 things they're going to do to take over the world. They're sending out those 27 things in booklet form to every Jewish soldier, even the most lowly soldier, apparently. I mean, the whole story from its face is ridiculous. But here's where it gets interesting. With Soros, the right, while there were protests during COVID and everything, the right claimed that there was a contract found on an Antifa member. A contract was found from George Soros to this Antifa member. If they rioted on this night, then they make $5,000 or something. It's absurd. They're repeating anti-Semitic conspiracy theories that have existed for thousands of years and applying it to George Soros. It's nuts. And off of this fake contract that never existed, they get this idea that Soros is rolling buses in of Antifa, fighters who are trying to wreak havoc and stuff. It's insane. Okay, so Bullock says that George Soros is driving in vans and buses full of Antifa members. Okay?
Of the planet and moved in with their cronies, rolled buses in that came from him, set out foot soldiers called Antifa, started setting people out like that. BLM and all of this began to do what they did, and you saw somebody like this with that much money, that much power, hold a conference of a fight back table, brought all of the Republicans in he wanted, all the Democrats in he wanted, and worked out every war strategy during the election.
God, this guy sounds smart, right? I mean, this is obviously completely made up. Do I even need to say that? I can't believe that there's somebody out here who actually bought all this nonsense. I was actually looking for the contract because there was a contract fabricated that had George Soros' signature on it or something like that. I don't remember. I'm trying really hard to find it. If I find it, I'm going to save it because I've seen it before. Okay, I found this contract. I could not find the thing for the life of me. But here, this is the fake contract that was fabricated and uploaded to 4chan. I mean, it's right out of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion. They're practically quoting it. A rioter accidentally dropped this. Oops. Rioters issued orders from Democrats. A debrief will occur with AOEC representatives at Act Point Gamma Prime. Do not demobilize until instructed by an adjutorg or higher via 328BG as reiterated in earlier portions of this document. Approved practices. You may not under any circumstances deviate from the practices enumerated in this section. Hand to hand. Closed fist may be used only below the neck and above the belt. Open hands may be used wherever. This is so fake, it's ridiculous, right? Kicking is not permitted unless provoked with no other recourse. Here, let's see. Aggressiveness. Adjutorgs? They're calling each other adjutorgs. Adjutorgs will update you before mobilization on signs and codes used to identify friendly LEs and BWI officials. Do not engage with them on any level that may be perceived as friendly. Allied LEs have been instructed merely to not engage. They have not been told to assist. Adjutorgs, I wish I knew what an adjutorg was, will relay orders from nearby AOEC representatives when it's best appropriate to escalate. I mean, this is all just made up nonsense. And it's signed by some guy. I guess this is Soros's signature, right? There's a big S here. Look, George right here, signed, George. This is supposedly like the Antifa contract where they were offered a bunch of money. It's just insane. It's straight out of the Protocols of the Elders of Zion playbook, and it's so similar. It's like, how does anybody believe this? Anyways, it was debunked by Snopes and a billion other people. It should be obvious at its face that it's fake. Anytime large, widespread political protests take place in Western democracies, this is from Snopes, by the way, their debunking section. It seems the internet is set awash with false information, positing that the demonstrations have been centrally and secretly coordinated by Democrats, Antifa, George Soros, or some other left-wing boogeyman. Exhibit A, offered during the protests that swept the U.S. and spread to some Canadian and European cities in May 2020 after the police custody death of George Floyd in Minneapolis, was a page from the purported riot orders manual issued by Democrats and accidentally dropped, quote-unquote, by a protester. This document, which makes use of such official and ominous-sounding terms as Action Oversight Executive Committee, AOEC, okay, that's what it means, Gamma Prime, and 328BG, is sometimes accompanied by another page bearing the name and logo of Friends of Democracy, a super PAC founded by Jonathan Soros, son of financier George Soros. This is insane. So that's, yeah, it's a Friends of Democracy. It's a Soros-funded super PAC. Okay, that makes sense. The appearance of a Friends of Democracy logo was a prime clue that this purported manual had nothing to do with the George Floyd protests of May 2020, as that organization had merged with Public Campaign Action Fund to form the Every Voice PAC back in 2014. So this didn't even exist at the time anyways. In fact, this manual, quote-unquote, was just a recirculated version of a hoax that had appeared several years earlier. In that earlier case, linked to the April 2015 riots in Baltimore over the police custody death of Freddie Gray. This is a tweet from Brian Todd. A police car and van burned on the streets of Baltimore. Here's how the alleged April 2015 final operation order summary appeared in full. It's an exact copy. It looks exactly the same. It is the same exact document from 2015. Is any more evidence necessary? This is fake. It's been fake since day one. They lied. Here's the funding page. Point of contact, DA, I don't know what that says. Do not name this individual in any comms or in person. This does not leave this document. $26,000 is apparently given to people. Initial disbursement of funds prior to action. If you have not already received this disbursement, please reach out to the designated point of contact. For what it's worth, when a page wrinkles this way, it doesn't look like this when it's scanned in. This is not a real paper that's been scanned in. This is created by Photoshop. A scanner flattens the paper out. You'll see wrinkles and stuff, but you won't see massive waves in straight lines like that. You'll see tiny breaks in straight lines from time to time, but are they saying like they took a picture of this instead of scanning it in? Even so, it looks completely fake. Do not report this income to anybody. We have coordinated with relevant tax authorities and accounting firms to ensure that funding is distributed through appropriate channels to preserve OPSEC. Failure to properly abide by the terms of funding will result in your expulsion from future actions. The point is that George Soros did not fund Antifa or drive them in on buses or whatever other nonsense these people want to lay down. That's not even just a QAnon claim. That's a claim that's been repeated over and over and over again since George Soros was involved in politics to any degree.
Brought all of the Republicans in he wanted, all the Democrats in he wanted, and worked out every war strategy during the election, and took and in front of everybody just walked over and took something and said, "This is mine," and nobody even resisted it.
I guess he's talking about George Soros just taking U.S. democracy away. Am I reading this correctly?
And perpetrated the greatest lie on the American people we have ever seen, and then pulled down a duly elected POTUS.
Oh, so he thinks George Soros is responsible for removing Trump from office. Okay, wow. This guy's powerful, huh?
Pulled down the duly elected one and put up some kind of jackal snake-eyed somebody in the seat and set them up there and start calling for...
You know, jackal snake-eyed somebody, that sounds like a really long term to use. Instead, he could shorten the entire thing to just refer to Biden as a snackle, right? Snake-eyed jackal. Snackle. It's nice, simple, short, easy to say, and catchy. Sadly, I don't think that it's going to catch on with Robin Bullock because he doesn't watch my stuff. But boy, would I love it if he just started saying snackle.
And set them up there and start calling for all these ridiculous things. Has one vice president, they call him, who just does this. Whoa! And just
Is that supposed to be George Soros? I don't know.
pushes their hair back and don't know what they're doing. And people say, well, it's not a laughing matter. You dadgum right, it's not a laughing matter.
Language, good sir. Dadgum? That's just not said in polite company. Certainly not from a pulpit.
If it wasn't so pathetic, we would laugh about it. I'm not trying to be funny.
Well, you're accomplishing... Well, you are funny. You are about as funny as it gets. It's just ridiculous. This whole thing is ridiculous. Anyways, the point I'm so laboriously trying to get to here is that QAnon is an arm of the Russian disinformation campaign. The Russian disinformation wing, if you will. I hope I've convinced you of that. I hope I've convinced you that George Soros isn't this big boogeyman who controls governments and all that stuff. I hope you recognize now that the dude is propagandized about constantly. It's insane. He's been the target of anti-Semitic hate since, like, forever. It's just nuts. Anyway, let me know what you think about it in the comments. I can't help but laugh at Robin Bullock. He's just not a serious human being. He simply isn't. Dude, I've never shown this clip of Robin Bullock before on my channel. I never found a good use for it, but I love this clip to death. I won't give any lead into it. Just listen, okay? This came from late February 2022. Matter of fact, this clip I'm about to play, this clip I'm about to play actually came from like a week before or so, before the clip that we just watched. And it was the week or the week after the Ukraine war started. Listen to Bullock here.
And you have to ask yourself this: how did he move those timbers around?
Talking about Noah. How did Noah move timbers around? Good question. The answer? Noah wasn't a real person. It was plagiarized straight from the Epic of Gilgamesh. But okay. Tell me, Robin, how did Noah move timbers around to build an ark?
Yeah.
How did he pick up those timbers and move them around? Well, there's something called, everything has a frequency.
Yeah.
What are you talking about? A frequency is like a vibration speed, basically, right? Sound vibrates through the air. Right? I mean, sound has a frequency. Light also kind of has a frequency in some ways.
This AirPod case has a frequency.
Shout out to Apple.
If you could, because it's made of matter,
Right.
if you could match the frequency of this AirPod case and you knew what it was and you could match it, you could pick it up off the ground without touching it.
Okay, so Noah apparently was so knowledgeable about the universe that he was capable of matching the frequency of wood and moving it without touching it. Alrighty.
Just through sound.
Oh, you're doing it through sound. Okay. So he seems to recognize that matter does not have a frequency, that sound has a frequency.
It had to be moved with sound. Well, that's brilliance of mind that we don't possess right now. We see, all the technology just actually showed how dumb man has become.
Okay, no. We are not any dumber or more intelligent than we were 50,000 years ago, or really even 100,000. We've just continued to build on our base of knowledge over the centuries, millennia, generations.
In comparison to how smart Noah and Adam and all of them were.
No, we're not dumber.
And you have to
Oh, and Adam and Eve and Noah were not real people. The Noah story was plagiarized from the Epic of Gilgamesh. And you know what the word Adam means? Actually, like when it was written, in the language that it was written, you know what the word means? It means soil. Seriously, Adam means soil. So God pulled Adam from the earth. He's saying he pulled soil from the earth. That's what he was saying. It's kind of like earth and earthling. to some degree. Anyway, this is an absurd human being. He is about as ridiculous as it gets. Let me know what you think about him in the comments. I am so deeply entertained by him, but my God, this guy is unglued from reality.